Hi, welcome back to my life with plants. I'm Newman. It is winter, well, early winter preparations. I've been bringing in the orchids 3 weeks ago, but it was still warm. There was no problem with the weather, but I just decided to get things done ahead of time because I don't know how to arrange them inside, but so far so good. As you know, a lot of these have been coming in inside, and they just so happen that growth is starting to develop. You can see one there on this Denema polybourbon, and another right there. Even the Cattleya Lindleyi has been doing much better. Now, why is that? They're supposed to like the heat, but it all falls back down to altitude. So no matter where you live or where you are in the world, altitude is everything. They grow in altitudes that suit their growing needs. So here being 25 meters above sea level, we get far too hot in the summer, so they go dormant. Unless it's a Cattleya that grows sea level and up. A good example of something that handles the heat is Biffineria. Last name starts with T, which I can't quite recall at the moment, but it's been putting out new roots. It has this new bulb here. It's truly a very hardy orchid, so it can handle the temperatures here very easily in the summer, and it doesn't stop growing even no matter how hot it gets. Got up to 38 was an uncommon. This one here is a Cattleya tricolor, and you can see in there that you have some active root growth, and I did peel off the sheaths on there, which you're not supposed to do because I wanted to see what was going on under there, because putting it out on the balcony is a trial and I'm not so sure about its culture, even though I read about it. Bulbs are quite shriveled, but they will plumpen back up again during the winter. Moving along, we have the Cotylogenes intermedia, which has been outside all during the summer in a shaded area, so no direct sun whatsoever. Definitely not here anyway, because it gets far too hot, as I said, far too hot for it. It would kill it. And these bulbs are very, very plump, because I didn't hesitate to just water it frequently in the summer. It's in sphagnum moss. It wasn't fine chip bark. It's in this pot that looks like Jason's hockey mask. It's got so many holes that I put into it to let the air through. So this one I'm expecting to get a lot of flowers from the bulbs that developed over the summer. This one would keep growing through the winter time too, although it might not like the lower humidity level. So it's not like a lot of typical dendrobiums that like a little drop in humidity and a drier winter. This one tends to still like some water, and it definitely loves humidity. But we're not talking about that hot, steamy humidity. We're talking about cool, tropical. Let's see. Okay, down here, this Lycast, which is a hybrid done in Japan, I'm pretty sure. Has big yellow flowers, but they put a bulb out with these leaves, and it's starting to get roots climbing into the media there. Loves plenty of water, does not love it when it was in August weather, so its bulbs started to shrivel a little. I kept it in the shade, so no direct sun. It did experience very high temperatures though. It lost this bulb, which was a bulb it produced last year with luscious leaf growth and everything, and then I lost it. So that one is going to hang up under the trees this summer for sure. Didn't quite like those high temperatures, neither did this orchid here, which is an Epicatlia. It lost its two bulbs that it produced due to the heat stress. Down here is Litotes bicolor. You get the Litotes bicolor, which I decided to put into the garden and hang it under the trees and mount it, as you know if you've been watching my videos. And it's been doing much better, put out new growth. How I knew it was dying is that when it was in its pot on the balcony with the 80% shade cloth, shaded of course, it did not like the temperatures that were rising over 35 degrees daily, and the new growth had rotted off at the base. That was a sure sign to evacuate it. This one here is a hybrid between Vanderfalcata and another species that's found in China. It's got a little damage on here. That was from temperatures that went down to about 15 degrees. Believe it or not, it didn't like it. So it's definitely not following its tougher parent, which is the falcata, which is native to Japan, which will go through the whole winter, even snow, no problem, as long as it's hung underneath trees. And this one has lovely light blue flowers when it does. Still in the pot, in sphagnum, terracotta pot. Usually dries out very well and very quickly in between waterings. This one here is a gift that I got, and she told me that you better bring it indoors during the winter, and that's what that leaf damage is. And I followed those instructions. It's in a basket with a little sphagnum, nothing much else. That bag there that looks like a tea bag has got slow release in it, so all good. And for the winter, my newest purchase is a Sologenes flaccida. If I've made a mistake with the name, I'll put it on the screen, but this grows all the way from Nepal all the way down to Vietnam, so it's a very common Sologenes. It has a yellow bloom with a brown labellum or lip. Fragrant, musky, cinnamon-like smell, depending on what plant you have and where it comes from. In Asia, the smell could differ slightly, but I have got it as cuttings because I love cuttings. Cuttings are always healthy. You know, they have no rot issues. And I mounted it onto this piece of wood, and during the summer it will join Sologenes intermedia in its cool, humid area that I provide for them. Although the mother-in-law says, if you can't see it, get rid of it. They can't see it. Oh well. What are you supposed to do, right? You got to hang them where they live best, and you've got to go around there to have a look at them. But I love plants, and I don't mind putting them in the areas where they may be right out of the way and you've got to go around there to see them. I mean, if you think about it, if you're having a nice peaceful day and you have a stroll through your garden and you have plants in different nooks and crannies and places, it's really interesting. It's interesting for guests too. They might come around and want to see your beautiful garden. So I think of it that way. This one is a Sologenes huetneriana. Yep, and pretty sure I got the name right on that, and is plumped right up. It was just 3 bulbs left over from the year before. I've been trying to keep it alive, and I thought I'll just keep it in this sphagnum moss, and I got very lucky, and it has actually started to produce roots again. And its newest bulb here, it's trying to put some size on with it, but I don't think it'll get too big. But the great thing is that it's all rooted up, and it remained in here actually all year, for a whole year, so it never went out. But I plan on putting it with the other Coleogenes orchids. This one was been in the garden for the remainder of the summer from August, because it did have the bulbs were going soft and mushy, and that is a sure sign that this orchid is going to die. And it's a bulbophyllum, so I don't know any bulbophyllums that can handle over 35 degrees. I think a lot of them don't like it at all, but you can see here that it's just producing roots that have grown onto this piece of wood that is hollowed out with some sphagnum moss in it, just so I can retain some moisture, because it is a bulbophyllum after all, and its name is Lasiochyllum. And the great thing is that those soft bulbs have actually firmed up as it have produced new roots, so everything's good with it. Has to go outside and hang under the trees. There is no other way about it. It does not like heat. Under the trees is a max of about 30 to 31 degrees, by the way, and being underneath the trees, it traps more humidity, which it likes. This is Porpax alba, Epidendrum Porpax alba, and it is what's left over of a plant that died, for sure, because I have it out on the balcony there. Didn't like the heat, and you can see the new roots have started to grow on it, so it's nice and healthy. Everything is good. That's what I decided to mount it and do that. It was the right thing to do. It's hanging in that home here that I've made for the orchids. In the back there, could take them out, but it's a bit of a issue, quite tough, so I will put the camera down there. You can see lots of roots growing on this Brassavola little stars, and it was growing in a pot, beautiful root system, but I had to take it out of the pot because me growing them outside, and you get the high humidity, and it's really hot humidity, it's not cool at all, right? And you're constantly sweating non-stop in the summertime. You just can't stop sweating, and that's just too much for it. So I had to take it out of the pot and mount it to do the right thing. It will get a little stressed, might drop one or two leaves, which it did, coming back inside, and it has to adapt to its mount. But once it does, everything will be great. The next one over, if I can get my camera in there. Okay, there we go. That one is the Brassavola nodosa, which does come from lower altitudes, so it is very well known by growers to be easy for culture, and it had been upside right until 3 weeks ago that I brought them in. We still have some rain today, but it's very seldom, very infrequent, because we're going right into the autumn now. And you can see here that it has some new bulbs, which, as you know if you've been watching, it is still going to have a long way to go before it actually grows roots that attach onto the cork. Right next to it, hanging up there, is Vanda Falcata hybrid green light. So green light is a little tiny miniature which has beautiful root system. It has the sphagnum little root ball still attached. I put that nylon around it so that it didn't fall apart. The rest of the roots just dangle freely, which it likes. This one down here did not like the heat. It grew its new bulb and the bulb rotted off, so it is going to hang underneath trees this summer. Epicatlia Kyoguchi Happy Field. So that one doesn't like really hot temperatures, okay? Does not. So if you got those temperatures once again that are 35, the 31 is about its maximum, so you don't want to go over that. This is the growing tip, because it doesn't like it, and it's starting to put out a new bulb, which means that it, if I can get it out here, I just want to show you this, because if you're growing this particular hybrid, you can see there, right? Can you see that? It's starting to grow that now that it's getting cooler. So the parent plant of the epidendrum side is dominating for sure. It doesn't have so much of the Cattleya side in it, which put up with it, like Cattleya beringiana puts up with the heat nicely. These leaves are not burnt because I didn't put it in too much sun. It was in some direct sun, but through the shade cloth, 80%. Very high humidity this summer. Got lots of water. Flowered. Everything's going well. And it has one of the most amazing root systems of any orchid that I have. Maybe you think of it as weedy, I don't know, but for me it's a good grower and I love it, and happy about that. What else do we have? This one is just a purchase that I made. Dendrobium specio kingianum white. You can see that it's got the root system coming away nicely. It was already potted up and everything ready to go when I bought it. Still in the polythene, but I'll get it out of there in the spring. It has nice large leaves, quite big canes following the speciosa side of it, and remains quite tight and compact like the kingianum side. I was going to give it a trial outside this winter, and I will do that. Hopefully if I just chuck some frost cloth over it, it'll be enough, and it should come into flower. I know that the other kingianum didn't flower last year. There was a combination of not quite enough water, and it was too dry, and it was cold, and I think I needed to water it a little bit more. It's not quite like a nobile type that you can let get pretty dry, but then again, we're living here in Japan and we have our native Dendrobium moniliforme, and today is a wet day and it's November, and the maximum temperature is about 15, 17 degrees. So that gives you an idea that it's not bone dry. But when it does rain, it kind of trickles. It's just a little tiny bit of rain. Today is an exception. It's quite a rainy day. It's actually just spitting at the moment. But they do definitely get some water in the winter, but nothing like the summer. It's much less. Yeah, makes it easier for me because living in the country of nobile type orchids, I can just see the weather outside and I know when to water and when not to. I just follow the weather pattern. Okay, what else? Another one that hates the heat. Watched a lot of videos where they have them hanging up in the hot sunny area, but I've never experienced this, or actually any maxillaria liking the summer heat. They just go straight dormant. And all of this growth, all of it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all of these newer growths coming up were all made last winter. Didn't do anything but just flower in the summertime. Did not grow. But why does it grow in the winter? Because I think it's a cool to intermediate growing orchid, for sure. It's not going on the balcony anymore. It's going to have I'm going to make a hanger for it. It's going to hang underneath the trees, because I want to see how that goes for it. Definitely does not like hot. What I mean by hot is your cattleyas, those Brazilian ones that grow in the dry environment. Does not like it. Does not like heat, even if it is tropical and wet, humid. When it gets over 31, it's going to go dormant. And this is the second time it's showing me to do that. And that will start to go into growth. And it's a tenuifolia. It'll start to grow during the winter, new bulbs and everything. But it did flower. Just needs to have more bulbs this year. So it's a cool grower. I was putting it in the heat, wondering why doesn't it grow like everyone says it does. Didn't do it. Okay, what else? Okay, if you got cattleyas that have wrinkled leaves and everything, don't be tempted to up the watering. Sometimes they just want to wrinkle because it's part of their natural life cycle. And this one is pretty wrinkly. It's a RTH Youngman Gold. And you can see here that, well, it had new growth. Yeah, it's been having a struggle with the root system. It has put out 2 new growths, 1, 2, but I water it when it is thoroughly dry. It's still in a pot. In actual fact, I think it could do with a mount, because it's not growing in the pot like it should be. It had a lot of heat in the summer. It actually got plenty of water, which sometimes I think was overdoing it. It should be kept a little drier, but don't be tempted to water more when you get wrinkling leaves. Means there's not a lot of roots in there. Just hold off. Wait for the new growths to put those new roots out. This one's super healthy. It's a miniature. It has been growing and growing and growing, and in there it has even more growths. Can you see them? Look at them all. This is growing in a shallow pot with a lot of pumice and a little chunks of bark and coconut fiber. Didn't flower. It's very unpredictable. But one thing for sure is when it got to the end of August, it dropped 1 or 2 bulbs. They rotted at the base. And that's happened even the year before and the year before that. I've had this plant for 7 years. I think once it goes over its maximum temperature of 37, it hit 37 at that time, that's when it starts to suffer. So for sure, I should back off the watering a bit and keep it on the dry side, even though that the humidity is extremely high in the summer. High tropical humidity, how can I explain it? It's different than growing in a greenhouse. If you live in a temperate climate like England or somewhere like that, if you have a maximum of 38 degrees, it's not the same heat. It's a different kind of heat. We have the temperature that can read 35 to 37 during the summer, but then you've got the humidity, and the humidity is thick. It's like thick, steamy air that would be coming out of your bathtub after you run your bath and you get all that steam coming out. It's kind of like that. And that mixed with the overall temperature that is produced by the sunlight, which is 35, and that air humidity is something like 40 degrees. You can't sweat to cool off. So if you're outdoors and you're sweating, your sweat doesn't evaporate. It actually doesn't do anything for you, so that you become overheated, and then you can get heat stroke. Doesn't make sense, right? And the sunlight can be blocked by the haze of humidity in the sky, which is gray. But once the sun does break away and finds a hole and it can shine through, it's not uncommon that it just shoots up 6 more degrees. So, it is an extremely hot weather. And the altitude, see, a lot of orchids, they do grow in those conditions in Brazil and Colombia, but they grow up in the mountains and it doesn't get as hot, okay? You can be sweaty and miserable, but definitely the sunlight won't get through. And you can see mosses and lichen and all that growing thickly, and they'll only grow if the temperature is about 31 degrees, about that. Definitely not anywhere near 38 to 40 degrees. The orchids wouldn't be growing on those trees anymore. There would be a void of them. So that's just a little growing tip for you guys that think tropical climates are what could be your problem. Why can't you grow them? It's altitude. Okay, you can be in those tropical countries and have nothing at 25 meters until you get up to 160. You might see 1 or 2, right? There's not as many varieties, but there are, okay? There are specific varieties, just like the Biffineria here, and there's actually another Clerophthalus that actually looks like almost dark green, mottled brown terete mini cucumbers. They're just like 3 inches high, and actually you could mistaken it for some kind of a succulent. So they're specified for their growing area, but they're very far and few between, and they are selective about where they grow. They don't grow everywhere. They can grow in very short distances, just within a few square miles, or even kilometers, or even meters. They could be in a short area, in a very wide and massive grasslands with rock. You could search forever and find nothing, and then you suddenly run into them. So, but definitely when you get up to those temperate areas in the tropics, your varieties of plants increase. Okay, so one more thing. grow lights if you are growing orchids and stuff like that. I accidentally bumped the stop button on the camera, but we're back again. So talking about grow lights, if you're growing orchids and nepenthes and Hoyas and stuff like that, you don't need to invest in too many grow lights if you have windows. So these windows are not very big, as you can see. They're quite narrow and long. The Hoyas grow fine. I have grow lights, but they're for fish tanks. So we have this one here that's very, very small, okay, and it's set up. And it produces just enough light to make this Phalaenopsis orchid go and produce its flower spikes, which you can see there. That paper up there was to block the excessive amount of sunlight coming in that would burn them. And I have this nepenthes I brought in, starting to get cooler in November. I did empty all the pitchers because I got to bring it indoors. Refilled it with dechlorinated water. Don't know if it'll get upset or not. It did put out a lot of growth there. And it has this grow light, which is for fish tanks, and it's enough light. Okay, it's about as much light as they would get when they're growing underneath trees. It's just bright light. Nothing too strong for them. So it's going to remain there. I did connect it to the power point, and I tried to make it look neat by putting little plastic hooks here so that the cord is not dangling on the floor, so that you can still clean. Try to keep it tidy. Yeah, so you can see here that even with that small light that's made for fish tanks, that actually give fish enough sunlight that produces the calcium they need in their bones and for their scales and to be healthy. And for fish tank plants to grow is just enough. And you can see up here how green and beautiful this Phalaenopsis orchid is. So it's getting just some of the light off there and through the window, and it grows fine and produces beautiful flowers. So there you are. You can use fish tank lights. You can invest and pay $50 or something for those LED lights, or you can pay about $25 for one of those. I do have other grow lights that are actually made for or specified for plants. They're so bright that it's almost like a comet is coming from another planet. It's so blinding. They're on big clips, and it's a double. I was going to bring them out and put it on here with these orchids here, so that I can compare this year to last year and see how they go. What else can I talk about for this update? We will venture outside, so come with me. I'm in central east Japan, away from the coast, not on the coast. So we are going to experience -5 degrees and stuff like that. And under here you have the all of this I've got to go through. So this is the shade cloth I was talking about, where all those orchids were that didn't do too well. Out here it was hot as heck. Too hot. You can't beat trees. Trees are... You cannot imitate them unless you have one of those walls that they have that they wet and then the air travels through it and becomes a cooler. Without all of that equipment, trees do it all for you. You hang something underneath a tree like that with a canopy and it reduces the temperature and keeps it around 30 to 31 during the summer. Also provides more humidity and also gives off heat as it transpires through the leaves during the coldest times of the winter, which repel frost. So they do everything for you. So if you got orchids and you have trees, use your trees. Hang them underneath them. Alright? If you're going to hang them under a protected area with a big, huge cover, carpool cover, or something that's has shade cloth and everything on it, just remember that it's going to be hotter, much hotter than if you put them underneath a tree, unless you have industrial fans blowing. You can do that. Okay, let's have a peek, because Dendrobium nobilis are not coming in. They stay out here because they can actually handle it, believe it or not. I've seen them nobilis growing in outside of a bicycle car park. You might catch images of it. I might have provided some, I can't remember, and if I haven't, I'll try to look and I'll try to put them on the screen here. These ones are outside just all winter. Nobilis. And our winters get dry. Very seldomly rains. And if it does rain, you get this kind of a warming up of the temperature. The temperature will actually warm up slightly as the rain comes. And then as the rains go away, and the rain can be just a little shower, just a little tiny shower and nothing more. When it does have that shower, it actually warms up. And the shower would be very short. It could be just 5 to 10 minutes. And it all evaporates again because of the low humidity during the winter. But they're going to put up with some real cold. This is a gift that somebody gave to me when I had a visit to an orchid collection, which you can see on my YouTube channel. I tried to film as much as I could. My plan is to go back there in the springtime, so I can record all of the nobilis and everything that flowers in the spring. Kingianum. So up here I have my nobilis. You can see here that you have the odd yellow leaf. They are starting to become deciduous. They put on a lot of growth during the summer. The amazing thing is they were under here during that extreme hot summer temperatures, and they actually got through it. So there wasn't any direct sun on them, but they definitely did put up with that heat. They slowed down a little bit, but then every opportunity they had, they actually put more growth on. So you can see this one's a nice full cane. A little bit twisty, but it's a nice healthy canes there, so they will flower. This one here that I picked up, and it was cheap, $5. It was on clearance. There's a real interesting name. Tomo Flake Napori. That one, unfortunately, is trying to catch up with its newest canes. They might not get all the way as big as these, because it was out the back of the store, struggling to make growth from its new canes. It was struggling, but I've managed to get them that far. You know, they just could be smaller than the previous year. So one more year after that, and the new canes coming off these particular ones should be bigger. But that happens. This is one that I picked up as a nice fall plant. It is a Kingianum. It has purple and white flowers. I was going to keep it out here for the winter. I hope it does fine. I will just put that frost cloth on it, just enough to stop it from getting shocked. This is the one I was talking about that didn't flower. Didn't flower last year, but it definitely did put up with the cold, and I don't know if it liked it or not. It's definitely pushing it. And it does put out new growth when it can. I guess it takes time for it to adjust to being repotted. Does drop the odd leaf now and then. I remember having Kingianum in the backyard growing up as a kid. It's in a concrete pot. Never, ever, ever was repotted. In the winters there, rained. It was a rainy, wet winter. So the humidity, you can imagine, was almost 100% saturation. It didn't get that cold, like the absolute minimum temperature that you could have early hours of the morning, maybe 3 or 4 in the morning. It could go to 5 degrees, but every now and then, like very, very rarely, you could have a frost, and it's one of those frosts that you just see it a little bit on the tips of the lawn. So to give you an indication how warm it was, their lawns grew fast all through the winter. They were green and luscious and kept growing. And that dendrobium was out in that concrete pot in full shade. Okay, it was on the darkest side of the house, outside the porch, outside. So it experienced got a lot of water during the winter. And it flowered perfectly. So I know for sure that I'm not going to let it dry too much. I'm going to give it water during the winter, because I got that memory, see, of that experience. So this is going to actually get some water today, and we'll see what happens this year. We'll see if it flowers, because I think it was underwater during the winter, if you ask me. I don't think it's that dry in the Queensland area where it grows. My experience of Queensland is it does rain on and off during the winter. It's not bone dry, but it is drier than the summer. But it's not bone dry. You do get that sporadic rain where it just suddenly rains, and then it'll quickly dry up. So that's what it's going to get. Those same conditions. However, the lowest temperature is extremely lower than what it's used to. But let's just see. So those are the nobelies that will stay out here. They will do what they do best, and they will become deciduous for sure. They will be bold. Not a leaf on them. How do I know that they do alright? Because that tree right there, I'm going to put an arrow next to it. It's got two huge nobelies growing in it that have been in there for over a decade. Underneath here, there's some that have to come in. Gatianum did a miracle of a thing and actually started to regrow. These two growths, but I don't know how big they'll get. I think I'm just going to have to invest in keeping it inside and letting those canes grow. Substitute for flowering. There's a nobly type that I put a large branch in there so that all the keikis can grow and root all over it, because I know for sure if I take them off I lose a lot of keikis. This Dendrobium speciosum exgracilla is going to come in. These other nobelies will stay there, of course. Tortulae, which is that one right there. This one here is pretty tough. That's the one that's actually growing next door. It's Tortulae. And Tortulae seems to be a really tough nobile species. Can really put up with that cold. That's for real. Yes, I did buy some smaller plants of nobiles. I'm going to have to expect probably 1 or 2 flowers or hardly anything for the first spring until they become bigger and more mature plants. That's because I bought them as small, cheaper plants, and you have to expect that. You should buy a big, nice, full plant. You would get everything almost instantly without waiting. But I like to wait. Of course, I won't be waiting for this, will I? That one will be in an abundance of flowers. Well, this is a gift. I've got a thing about people gifting me plants. They actually have more. They're more special to me than ones that I buy. I know a lot of you feel like that. Nelson, who has his wonderful program on orchids, Nelson is that kind of a person too, and I bet that a lot of you other growers out there, Terry would be one, and Melissa. Yeah, I know that you guys find something special about gifts. They seem to turn into your favorites. Maybe it's something that you would never buy, but when you get a gift, it's just it means more, doesn't it? There's a special thing about it. Look at this. So this new friend that I met, who has all of her orchids, and once again you can watch it on my channel. The camera work's not too good because I was under pressure for time, but I was trying to record everything I could, and I wish I had taken a capture of the whole area altogether, because it's pretty wonderful when you step back and you look. She has orchids in every little pocket and niche and all over the front of her property. But what's interesting is how she took them out of pots and mounted them on like that, and I thought that was because she was getting to know orchids better over the years, and knowing that some of them actually don't like being in pots and they rot. They like a lot of more air exposure, but the reason why she did it is a lack of space. And if she mounts them onto branches, which she said she got this one from just after a storm at the park, and it's a branch off a cherry tree, Japanese cherry tree. She said she mounts them on to save space because she can hang them anywhere underneath the trees in her garden, and they are lighter. So terracotta pots are quite heavy, and that's why she did it. But being a nobly type, they don't mind being in pots either way, and it still has the moss on it, which is good because when it gets watered it doesn't dry out too fast. Otherwise I'd have to water it non-stop during the summer. Unless it's hanging underneath the trees, the weather takes care of it. And yeah, she gifted it to me, and it's really something special. At the back here, you can see here there's this lovely new growth, and it is a Dendrobium Parishii. So I thought I was going to lose that, and then I put out this growth, waiting patiently. I may get flowers on this. It definitely didn't like any direct sun at all, but here it doesn't get any direct sun, but it does experience the heat. It's doing much better. This is another nobly type that has some of the most fragrant flowers of all I've ever smelt. This one here has some fragrance, not as much though. There's flowers that look like that. This one has pink flowers. Its name is kind of trapped up in there. Sao Himat. Sao Himat. So it's a hybrid done in Japan many years ago. This one is called Sweet Candy. And Sweet Candy has definitely a good name for it because those flowers are nice. Yeah. You know what's good about deciduous orchids? I'll tell you something good about them. When the bugs have to fill their tummies, okay, and they have a good nibble, it doesn't really matter because all the leaves fall off and you get new leaves the next year on the next cane. So it saves you the heartache. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Bye bye.